Hello everyone. Today when I went on YouTube, I noticed among the recommended videos an interesting title. The title of this video was The Ugly Side of Psychology Degrees. Hashtag psychology. The video was made and posted by TheOxfordPsych, that's the name of the channel, and the name of the person who made the video is Aika. And Aika, in this video, Aika is very clear, very honest and very thoughtful. Her own background, educational background, is in clinical psychology. She has a degree, presumably based on the name of the YouTube channel, a degree from Oxford University in clinical psychology. And the video, The Ugly Side of Psychology Degrees, video was posted last year, so July 2020. But it is still highly relevant and it will stay relevant in the foreseeable future. So I thought I would bring the video to your attention if you don't know of it already. And I would like to also in this video do a bit of a summary. So I'll offer my own summary of Aika's main points and add some of my own notes. I think in some ways Aika is still somewhat optimistic about what goes on in a psychology degree and in psychology courses for the most part in a typical university degree. So let's begin with the video, with our summary of the video. Aika says in the beginning that she wants to expose psychology degrees, the ugly side, the dark side of psychology degrees, and discourage us, or not discourage, it's not an unconditional message of, avoid at all costs. If you're interested in doing a psychology degree, or if you're already enrolled in a degree in psychology, drop out. No, it's not that kind of extreme message, but it is a cautionary note, a cautionary tale, an invitation to think carefully before you decide on a psychology degree. So let's go through the main points. The first point is that, in Aika's words, psych degrees are, for the most part, bogus degrees. And we should unpack this term. What does it mean to refer to a degree as a bogus degree or a bullshit degree? It means that it is not rigorous and it offers superficial treatments of topics without any practical transfer or translation. It doesn't give us skills, but some ideas, and that ideas are not translatable to things that you can do to make yourself employable. So bogus degree, superficial, theoretical in some sense. I would say Aika is not super accurate when she says that it's theory-based. I think it's not even that. Most psychology courses are not even theory-based. There are some things are presented as theories to us, but they are ideas. There are some notions of, okay, let's think about this cognitive dissonance in terms of a theory. A more careful examination of psychological literature shows that these theories are quite small and each theory is tailor-made to explain a very, very small and narrow domain of psychology, subdomain of psychology. We don't have many big theories that are inclusive and holistic. The other point from Aika's video is that psychology degrees have been for a while, for many years now, very popular. And that popularity means that there's a lot of competition that you will face, both in the academic setting and in the job market. So combine that with the absence of practical skills. So you're competing against a lot of other people who don't have, similar to ourselves, psychology students, psychology graduates, similar to us, they don't have a lot of employable skills. So many people, they all don't have that edge, so it's not a good situation. Next, the third point, psychology degrees or obtaining a psychology degree that is somewhat useful in the job market is quite inefficient. That means it takes a long time. In Aika's case, that was 9 years. It's exactly the same in my case. 9 years if you add up the undergraduate and the graduate degrees. And the financial side, it is quite unlikely to get to a position to be employed and make a lot of money with psychology degrees. So the prospects of getting a job are already not very bright. And even if we get a job, the financial side is not going to be very rewarding. Aika says that this is another point that I might disagree a little bit from her, or maybe extend what she said. She said that psychology degrees, because they are trying to be holistic, they end up being superficial and shallow because they want to include so many things. The treatment of each topic is going to be not in depth. Now here I want to invite you to consider two different kinds of shallow and superficial. If you're already enrolled in psychology degree, or if you're planning to, it's relevant for you. So I invite you to think carefully about this distinction. One kind of superficiality is a kind that is the necessary outcome of limited time and limited space, limited effort. So the domain of study, the subject matter itself, can be studied in depth. But just because we don't have a lot of time, we end up with a version of it that is, relatively speaking, superficial. But there's another, more pernicious type of superficiality. And that is a kind of superficiality that is inherent in the subject matter. I repeat that. It's a feature of that course or that sub-discipline or subfield. The field itself is a superficial field. That is possible. That is a distinct possibility. What does that mean? It means that no matter how many years of your life, your valuable life, you devote to that field of study, you will still remain with a superficial knowledge, kind of knowledge. So the knowledge itself, the field itself, is inherently superficial. It doesn't have to do with limited time and limited effort. And psychology, unfortunately, is fraught with that kind of knowledge or those kinds of subfields. They are superficial, and they maintain themselves in a superficial form because researchers in that field can be speedy and can be productive. They can churn out, publish many papers per year, 20 papers per year, and because the field is superficial, people can join in and publish papers within 2 months or 3 months or whatever that timeline is. So sometimes superficiality is just because of the limited time, but other times it is a feature of, it is an inherent feature of the type of knowledge that we are dealing with. I could also mention that one of the most relevant, most transferable, most useful, widely useful things we learn in a psychology degree is statistics, but a psychologist's knowledge of statistics is, relatively speaking, limited compared to an economist's or a mathematician's. That's true. I would agree with that too. But that's also unfortunately combined with psychology students' kind of displeasure or dislike of statistics, which makes it even worse. Next point is quite important, and so let's pause on it a little bit. The most interesting part of psychology. The most interesting part of psychology are those parts of psychology that motivate us to join the discipline of psychology. So maybe you want to understand your romantic relationships, the experience of a heartbreak. Maybe you want to understand your own experience of depression or anxiety. Or maybe you're interested in criminal psychology or abnormal psychology or specific parts of abnormal psychology. These most interesting parts, what is most interesting, most intriguing about psychology, they are not very prominent in a psychology degree. So you learn a lot about other things that are not as interesting in social psychology, different topics, cognitive psychology, cognitive neuroscience. And these hot topics, topics that you might find personally very interesting, they don't feature, they're not very prominent in your degree, in the courses that you take. All right, so those are the main points from my point of view. Now, what is the conclusion? What did we get? What is the take-home message from Aika's presentation and my own summary? The conclusion is, to put it briefly, the conclusion is that you should not just go with the motions. If you are doing a psychology degree, you shouldn't trust the structure of your department and say, okay, as long as I just take my courses and do my best and trust the process and just go with emotion, I'll be fine. Things are going to work out. That's a dangerous strategy to adopt. Aika encourages the listeners, the viewers, and I would join her in encouraging you if you are involved in a psychology degree. She encourages us to know what you want, to know why you're interested in psychology and in what areas of psychology you're interested in. What is the nature of your interest? What parts of psychology, what areas of psychology, what do you want to do? So I had a student who knew this about herself. She knew that she was interested in art therapy. So the application of art in well-being, psychological well-being. That's great. If you have that kind of self-knowledge, that's self-awareness, then it helps you because you can search for people who are already actively have a job in art therapy. And you can talk with them, maybe do internships with them, ask them to be your mentor, and so on and so forth. Maybe do research with them. So knowing what you want, then you can make your degree and your educational experience unique. You can make your experience of your psychology degree unique. You can make it yours and add bits and pieces to it that give you a competitive edge. Not just a competitive edge, but make it enjoyable, a more fulfilling educational experience, learning experience. Aika also talks about the importance of doing summer internships, including in companies, non-academic companies, and research experience within the academia. Here I would add this note. Be very careful when you consider volunteering, working with someone, doing internships, volunteering as a research assistant. Make sure that it is clear what you get out of the experience. If you're only serving somebody else's work, if you're only helping somebody else with their research, with their productivity, let's say there is a psychologist who does interviews or has their people doing interviews and then invites you to join as a volunteer to transcribe interviews. So hours and hours of audio interview, you have to transcribe and turn it into text. What do you get out of that experience? Maybe for a couple of weeks or a few months is okay. But if you do 1 year of that kind of work, you are essentially helping somebody else be productive. So be careful with that kind of work. If the professor or supervisor says, just work with me for a year, at the end I'll write a good letter of recommendation for you, that's it. That's what you get. Decide for yourself if that is enough, if that's enough to get out of volunteering somewhere for half a year or a year. Aika, at the end of the video, she says that a psychology degree on its own means nothing. And unfortunately, I have to agree with that. I have to agree. Unless you make your degree unique, unless you yourself take an active role, a very active role, and develop autonomy, self-governance, self-directedness in your education, it will be very risky and it will not be as fulfilling as you might wish. So I'm thinking now, I'm motivated to make a series of videos, and let me know if you're interested in that. Because my own background is in research psychology, experimental psychology, I'd like to make a video about this type of topic to help students develop and acquire a more autonomous and more active role with respect to their psychology degree, psychological education. So I have in mind maybe a video about reading articles, reading. How should you think about reading articles, reading books? What should you read? How should you think about your reading experience? Maybe another video about the usefulness and importance of reading with and discussing with fellow students, like organizing a journal club, reading group or a journal club, or joining one if clubs like that already exist in your university around you. Maybe another video about the student-supervisor relationship. That's also an extremely important topic, not frequently discussed. And other topics, if you're interested in, if you have questions, if you want to suggest topics related to psychology degree, education in psychology, let me know to the extent that I can, that my own education allows for, and my own experience enables me to respond to those requests. I would do my best to do so. Otherwise, I hope you found this video useful. Check out Aika's YouTube channel and that video in particular. And that's it for now. I will speak with you in future videos.